Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. I thought I'd give you guys the lumber update video because I know how much you guys love the lumber update video. Now, recently, lumber futures have really been in the toilet. They have tanked. 400 per thousand is a very low price considering what we have been selling lumber for over the last couple of years. I mean, lumber peaked out at 1,700 per thousand. And right now we're sitting at about 4 times less than that, right? 400 per thousand. That's incredibly low. Now, the reason behind this is mainly due to the builder sentiment dropping off a cliff. When the interest rates began to rise and the mortgage rates were going along with them, that put a damper on the purchasing of homes out there. Like, home buyers are not interested in buying in this environment. And the home builders are very concerned about starting new projects and, not being able to sell those projects going into the future. And this is where a lot of people are anticipating like they're going to be like a crash in the housing market or something like that. And that all this inventory is going to come dumping onto the market. Like whether it's coming from foreclosures or people just like trying to get out of their house, trying to sell it or whatever. There's this idea that there's going to be a huge inventory coming onto the market and this is going to cause prices to drop. Now, we got to see the evidence of it. We haven't seen it yet. But there is a lot of chatter about this. Well, I look at the backlog of homes that is sitting on these builders' balance sheet. Now, you have to think about this. The backlog of homes is intense. Over the last 2 years, there's been labor shortages, supply chain breakdowns. There's, just the general idea of buying a house at the high prices was very difficult for a lot of people to try and deal with, right? So knowing all this stuff out there, where is it that we think the builders are going to be in the next year? Right? So if you have lumber dropping like it is, and you have new starts falling off a cliff like they have, what's going to be left for the home builders? Well, this backlog of incompleted homes is quite extensive, and there's a lot of them. So the home builders may not lose out completely because they haven't started new homes. They may still be able to stay in business just by completing these homes and not starting new ones. Now, this is where I get really concerned because at some point, that sentiment will change, where the home builders out there will then switch from trying to complete these homes that have been incompleted and switch over to new starts. And now when that takes place, we're going to see a demand for lumber unlike anything that we're experiencing right now. So think about this for just a minute. We have mill curtailments that are pulling back on the inventory, right? And I'm gonna show you that here in this lumber newsletter that I get once a week. So we have mill curtailments taking place right now. That is inventory depletion that is happening within the pipeline right now, and it's headed towards a moment in which that the builder sentiment will shift and the demand will pick up again. What do you think is going to happen when an inelastic demand, like coming from the builders, because once they sign those contracts, it's go, like it's time to go, we need to move, right? And that means you need to purchase, and it's going to be purchasing whatever you can get, wherever you can get it, especially if there's a shortage that's taken place. And so that was what we experienced during the pandemic. Now, just to kind of rewind it a little bit, prior to the pandemic, 2019, we had a huge inventory depletion. Mill curtailment, shutdowns, we were reporting on it pretty heavily throughout 2019, especially towards the end of 2019. The pandemic kicked in, everybody went home, got locked, was locked down, stay home, don't go to work. The mills shut down, even more inventory depletions. But then everybody started moving from the city out to the country and buying homes or remodeling or additions or whatever it was that they were doing. There was a huge demand for lumber that took place just as the pandemic was kicking in. That wiped out inventory, and the price of lumber futures shot through the roof. Now, let's fast forward back to what's going on today. We have mill curtailments taking place all over, right? From the eastern side to the western side of the United States, there's mill curtailments happening. That's inventory depletion happening, right? As the mills curtail, they're going to tighten up the inventory. We have builder sentiment right now that's in the toilet. They're not interested in starting new homes, but they're sitting on a whole bunch of backlog of incompleted homes. So they're not going to be in a high demand, but yet they're still going to be completing homes and selling them. At some point, that will come to an end of the completing of incompleted homes, right? The backlog of incompletion. That will come to an end, and then the new build will start again. And that's where the new home starts will then start driving into the demand for lumber, which we will have a very thin amount of inventory at the time. What will happen to prices? Boom, through the roof. So I don't know how far out that will be, but we have to keep an eye on the builder sentiment, their backlog of inventories, mill curtailments that are taking place, and the futures price. Because at some point, you know, in the beginning of the next year or into 2024, I don't know how long it's going to take. A year, 6 months, 2 years. I really don't know. But at some point, we are going to find that sentiment change in you know, the new home builders, and the demand for lumber is going to drive it so high that due to the fact that we have a depleted inventory, that people are going to be back into high-priced lumber again, and they're not going to know how to deal with it. So I'm giving you that warning now. This is something that I am predicting coming into the future. I don't see how it cannot happen. Like, unless the mills decided that they were going to start milling up inventory and sitting on it and not stressing about having a lot of stuff that's not moving, then we are going to run into shortages again at some point in the future. It's almost guaranteed at this point. So just wanted to give you some of because a lot of you know that I get a newsletter once a week that kind of tells me what's going on in the different regions throughout the country. And it's pretty interesting. Just about everywhere you look, whether it's OSB, fir plywood, southern yellow pine plywood, all the lumber mills, it's slow down and, you know, cautious, you know, advancements from here. That's all I can say. Lackluster is commonly used phrase these days when it comes to fir plywood. Trading has persisted, but at very muted levels. Talking about southern yellow pine plywood. Inquiries maintain steady prices this week. Follow through still seem rather lackluster. Again, not very interested in both plywoods or the southern yellow or the fir plywood. Moving on to western spruce, pine, fir. Another major BC mill, British Columbia mill, announced a curtailment this week, which sparked the futures market, and some cash sales followed. On the eastern side, the SPF market got a small boost earlier this week after Canfor's curtailment announcement. Southern pine. Cautious buying in southern yellow pine has seen prices dipping. The lull has seen mills take counters to move some wood. 2x4 is down in all regions. So it sounds to me, let me see if there's any more here on the backside. Western spruce dry, or western species dry dimension. A good amount of material has been quoted this week, but takeaway remains hit or miss. Buyers are looking to cover pressing needs. However, the numbers are getting to levels where not much downside risk is associated. So they don't think that they're going to be, like, buying at this level doesn't really caution them because they're not worried about the downside risk from that. If you buy now and then it drops, then you end up, you know, having to buy or sell more expensive lumber than your competitor will. But if the prices are just, that's it, that they're not going any farther than this, then you're good. Like, at that point, you can buy whenever and you're going to still be profitable. You don't have to time it as, like, you don't have to be so much on the timing of it. Green Doug fir prices continue to fall. Limited inquiry from members persist, and we continue to see mills are willing to make deals to clear prompt inventory. So yeah, even the mills there on the green dimension are trying to get it out of the way as soon as they can. So this is happening, guys. The home builder sentiment is really going to be the ticket to this thing. Once that starts to pick up again, you're going to find the demand for lumber is going to pick up, and there's simply just not going to be enough in the system, and the price of lumber is going to skyrocket. Again, I don't know how far out that's going to be, but that is definitely something that I see as far as I just don't see any other way out of that. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. Uneducated economist. You guys let me know.